Action.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk through exploring ideas on a bubble map. So you might be doing this at the start of a project when you've just been given your question, or it might be that you're doing this to prepare for a significant piece of work, particularly as you move towards completing your final piece. I think it's helpful when you're generating ideas and planning a piece of work to think about question prompts. So I've got 5 question prompts here, which I recommend that you consider if you're trying to structure your bubble map. So when, how, who, what and where. Okay. So if we start off with the who. So when you're thinking about who, obviously you're going to explore artists. You are also potentially going to look at influential people. So that could be people who are in the media, or it could be people who are influential on a personal level. And obviously you also need to think about models. So people who you can realistically photograph. So that is almost certainly going to be friends and family. Okay, moving on to what. The kind of things that you need to explore in what are the subjects of your photos. So as I've just mentioned, people, but also places and things. So these are basically portrait, landscape, and still life. But you could also consider combinations. So if you were thinking about things and people, you could have those combined. You could think about combinations of locations and people and things. You could think about themes for all of these things, but for example, with still life, there are artists and photographers who colour theme their work. You could then think about where, so that would you'd be thinking there about locations. So on the most fundamental level, the geographical locations, geography. You could also be thinking about interior or exterior, and you could think about focusing on specific areas of either the interior or the exterior. For example, there are artists who look at views through doorways or views out of windows, thinking about that transition between inside and outside. And if you're focusing on specific areas, it might be that you start thinking about close-up or cropped, or even possibly macro photography. Okay, so moving on to the when. So if the where is geographical, then the when can be historical. So you can think about the past. That could be in a general way, so thinking about what's actually happening at the time, and significant things that are happening at the time in society for you, but also on a personal level. So thinking about what your own personal history and significant key events there. Key events can be in the past, but also in the future, and obviously present as well. Think about maybe big events, so maybe celebrations or some sort of coming of age. You could also think about time of day and seasonal, and that both of those can have quite a big effect on behaviour and how human behaviour changes depending on the time of day or depending on the season. Okay, and then finally going on to how. So this is where you start looking at the practicalities. If you are going to take some photos, what are your travel plans? Things like buying tickets, making arrangements with people. You could have screenshots of messages that you've sent each other. Whatever you're going to use, you need to think about the materials you're going to use, and possibly equipment. Think about the techniques. But for all of these things, whatever you're choosing to do, the final thing that I would sign off with is that you need to be thinking about big ideas, something fundamental, something with a bit more meaning that is going to feed into your ideas. So that's why I have sort of drawn your attention to things like the historical, the geographical, influential people, social, societal pressures and so on, because that would be where you start getting your ideas, start generating your ideas for making sure that your work is not only personal but also meaningful. Okay, good luck. Thanks.